It was a gray September morning in Cedar Falls, a quiet town tucked into the heart of Oregon, the kind of place where neighbors wave even if they don't like you, and secrets live long, buried deep beneath polite smiles and trimmed hedges. St. Gabriel's Hospice, a modest brick building near the edge of town, stood quiet except for the occasional bird or the shuffle of nurses. But room 12B was about to change everything. Margaret Holloway had been sitting beside her husband's hospice bed for nearly a week, holding his hand, whispering memories from their 50-year marriage. Harold Holloway, once a robust steelworker with arms like oak trunks and a laugh that could fill a church, was barely breathing now. Cancer had eaten away the man he was. He hadn't spoken in 2 days. That morning, the nurse stepped out for coffee, and Margaret leaned in close. Her lips brushed his ear. "Hal," she said, her voice trembling, "I need to tell you something before you go." There was a long silence. A clock ticked steadily on the wall, counting down. The children, Billy, Claire, Thomas, and little Nora, they're not yours, not by blood. The breath caught in Harold's throat. His eyes opened, wide. He stared into her face, full of disbelief, heartbreak, and rage. Then just like that, he was gone. Margaret sat back, wiped her eyes, and whispered, "I'm sorry," as if that made up for a lifetime of lies. 3 days later, Margaret Holloway was found dead in her home, stabbed brutally in her living room. No forced entry, no signs of struggle, just her body slumped beside the old fireplace, a letter opener buried deep in her chest. The Holloway house was soon crawling with police, and among them stood a tall, broad-shouldered man with salt and pepper hair and sharp eyes, Detective Raymond Keene. A legend in the Oregon Bureau of Investigation, Ray had been weeks from retirement when he got the call. Something about this case gnawed at him. 50 years of marriage, a deathbed confession, and then murder. He knew he had to see it through. The crime scene was still fresh. Blood had dried into the rug, a dark maroon bloom beneath Margaret's chest. Her eyes were still open, wide, frozen in shock. A white blanket lay neatly folded on the armchair across from her, untouched. On the table beside it, an empty teacup and a Bible. Ray bent down, examining the position of the body. Single stab wound, clean and deep. No signs of hesitation, he muttered. She knew her killer. Forensics confirmed it quickly. No fingerprints on the murder weapon except Margaret's. The house wasn't ransacked. Nothing stolen. Whoever did it came for one reason only, to silence her. But why? Detective Keene dug into her life. Margaret Holloway was a respected woman in town, churchgoer, volunteer at the local library. She was quiet, well-liked. But there were cracks, subtle ones. Her children, now in their 40s and 50s, arrived one by one. Billy, the oldest, a corporate lawyer in Portland. Claire, a high school principal. Thomas, a local contractor. Nora, the youngest, worked as a nurse in Seattle. All of them devastated, all of them confused. "She was fine when we last saw her," Claire said, blinking back tears. "Dad passed just a few days ago. She said she was going to be okay." "Do you know anyone who would want to hurt her?" Ray asked. They shook their heads. But Ray wasn't convinced. A woman doesn't drop a bomb like that on her dying husband and then end up murdered days later by coincidence. The autopsy confirmed what he suspected. No defensive wounds. Margaret didn't fight back. She likely knew the killer and trusted them enough to let them get close. And then Ray got a call from the hospice. "You might want to see this," said Nurse Kelly over the phone. "We record conversations sometimes for legal reasons. There's an audio file from the night Harold died. It's short, but you'll want to hear it." Ray drove straight there, his gut tightening. The audio was scratchy but clear. He heard the beeping monitors, Margaret's quiet breathing, and then her voice, deliberate, shaking. "The children, Billy, Claire, Thomas, and little Nora, they're not yours, not by blood." And then Harold's gasp. Ray replayed the moment. There was no mistaking it. That one sentence flipped everything upside down. If Harold wasn't the father, who was? The implications were massive. 4 adult children, each thinking they were born from a love story that spanned half a century. And now that illusion shattered. Had any of them known before she confessed? Had they overheard? Had one of them come back to silence the truth before it spread? Ray looked out over the sleepy town of Cedar Falls. It might seem quiet on the surface, but secrets this big never stay buried, and someone was willing to kill to keep it that way. Detective Raymond Keene sat at his cluttered desk at the Cedar Falls Police Department, the hospice audio looping through his laptop speakers. He played it again, stopping right after Margaret's confession. There was no mistaking the gravity of her words and the deadly chain reaction they'd caused. He rubbed his temples. This case was a spiderweb. Every thread led to a possible motive, but only one ended in murder. He had 4 grown children to question, each with a reason to hate her now. Keene started with the oldest, William Billy Holloway, 51. Sharp-dressed, controlled, and guarded. A corporate attorney in Portland. He'd arrived in Cedar Falls late the evening of Margaret's death. They met at the family home, where the murder had taken place just days prior. Billy stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, eyes scanning the stained rug like he was analyzing a crime scene of his own. "I still can't believe it," Billy said flatly. "She was here, and now," Keene cut in. "Where were you the night your mother died?" Billy didn't blink. "At a hotel in Portland. I've already told Officer Harlow that. Anyone with you?" Billy hesitated just a moment. Number I was alone. Ray leaned forward. "Did you know your father wasn't your biological parent?" Billy's jaw tightened. "What?" "She confessed it on his deathbed. We have a recording." Billy turned away, pressing his palm to his mouth. No, that's not possible. My dad, he raised us. He was our father, but not by blood. Margaret told him everything before he passed." Billy exhaled shakily. "I didn't know. I swear." Keene didn't push further. Not yet. But the man's reaction was either Oscar-worthy or honest. Next, Ray drove out to the Meadow Ridge High School, where Claire Holloway, 49, was principal. She met him in her office, modern, efficient, full of motivational posters. She looked tired. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her blouse slightly wrinkled. "I'll never forgive myself," she said as soon as he sat. "I should have stayed longer after Dad died. She was alone. Did you talk to her the day she died?" "No," Claire said quietly. "We texted that morning. She said she was going to start going through Dad's things. Did she tell you about her confession?" Claire blinked. "What confession?" Keene watched her carefully. "She told your father that none of you were his biological children." Claire didn't speak. Her face froze in disbelief. A long silence passed. Finally, she said, "That can't be right. Why would she say something like that? He would have known, wouldn't he?" Number. According to her, he didn't. Claire sat back, like the weight of her own body suddenly became too much. Keene continued, "Where were you that night?" "Home. My husband was out of town. I was with my son, Matthew. He was studying for a biology exam. I'll need to speak with him." Of course. Ray left her with more questions than answers. His next stop, Thomas Holloway, 45, contractor, a big man with rough hands and a stubborn jawline. He lived just outside town, in a modest home surrounded by unfinished projects. He met Keene on his porch with a wary glare. "You hear about Mom?" "I am," Keene said. "Mind if I ask a few questions?" Thomas nodded reluctantly and led him inside. The place smelled like sawdust and motor oil. "You hear what she told your father before he passed?" Keene asked. "Yeah," Thomas said flatly. "Billy called, said the hospice nurse had a tape. I didn't believe it until I heard it myself. How'd you feel?" Thomas looked down. Betrayed. Pissed. Like my whole life was a damn lie. "Did you confront her?" "No," he said, voice low. "Didn't get the chance. I needed to cool down first." "Where were you the night she died?" "Out on a job, renovating a kitchen for a client near Pendleton. I've got a signed invoice, time-stamped. You can check it." "I will," Keene said. "Who was your biological father?" Thomas laughed bitterly. "Hell if I know. And now I'll never get to ask her." Ray nodded. Thomas didn't seem like the type to plan a murder. But emotional rage, that was possible. Last on the list was Nora, the youngest at 39, a nurse in Seattle. Quiet, sensitive. She'd always been the closest to Margaret. Ray met her at a small cafe outside town. She looked shaken. "I just want answers," she said softly. "None of this makes sense. She never told you about your real father?" he asked. Nora shook her head. "Number. And I'm not sure I even want to know. Where were you the night she died?" "Driving here from Seattle. I left after my shift ended at 5 p.m. Didn't get in until after 11. I have gas receipts, toll data, whatever you need." Keene believed her, but something still felt off. Back at the station, he reviewed Margaret's will. No recent changes. Each child got an equal share of the estate, but a hidden note tucked into the last page caught his eye. It was handwritten, dated 2 weeks before Harold died. "To whoever finds this, I did what I had to do. I lived a lie to protect my children. I never meant for this to come out. If you're reading this, then everything is broken." Margaret had known the truth would destroy them. Maybe that's why she told Harold only when he couldn't respond. But someone had heard or found out, and someone had snapped. Then a call came in from forensics. "Detective Keene, we found partial fingerprints on the letter opener under the blood. Not just Margaret's. They match a family member." Keene sat up. "Whose?" There was a pause on the line. "Claire Holloway." The pieces were starting to shift. The rain started just after sunset, slicking the roads and casting hazy reflections across the small town of Cedar Falls. Detective Raymond Keene stood in the evidence lab, still staring at the forensic report like it had punched him in the chest. Claire Holloway. Her partial print had been found on the blood-covered letter opener used to kill her mother. Not on the handle, on the blade. No smudges, no accidental brush. The placement suggested contact during or after the act of violence. Ray ran his hand down his face. Claire had seemed sincere, shaken, the responsible one, a school principal, beloved in the community. But lies didn't care about resumes. By 9 p.m., Ray pulled up outside Claire's modest two-story home in the heart of town. The porch light was on. A teenager's bike leaned against the steps. The air was heavy with the scent of pine and wet concrete. Claire opened the door wearing sweatpants and a hoodie, her hair tied back. She looked exhausted but not surprised to see him. "Detective," she said. "Come in." They sat at the dining table. A framed photo of the family sat on a nearby shelf, Harold smiling with Margaret beside him, their 4 children lined up like perfect puzzle pieces. Ray didn't waste time. "Forensics pulled partial prints from the letter opener," he said. "Yours were on the blade." Claire went still. The silence between them deepened. "You want to explain that?" She exhaled slowly, clasping her hands. "Okay, but it's not what you think. Start talking." "I was at the house 2 days before Mom died. She asked me to help her sort Dad's things. We were in the living room, and I noticed the letter opener, same one she used to open his old war letters. She was sentimental about it." Ray nodded, waiting. "She handed it to me, asking if I remembered when he gave it to her. I did. I held it for a second, barehanded, then gave it back. That's the only time I touched it." Ray raised an eyebrow. "So, you're saying your print ended up on the blade purely from that visit?" "I never touched the blade directly, but maybe I did and didn't realize. I wasn't exactly thinking about evidence at the time." "Or," Ray said, leaning forward, "you touched it when you picked it up to stab your mother." Claire's eyes filled with sudden tears. "I didn't kill her." Ray let the silence press on her. Then she cracked. "Okay, I did go back. The night she died. I didn't tell you because I knew how it would look. But I didn't hurt her. You lied to me. I withheld." Ray stared at her. Claire took a shaky breath. "After I heard the hospice tape from Billy, I needed to confront her. I went over around 6:30 p.m. She was alone. I asked her if it was true. She didn't deny it. Just sat there like it didn't matter." "What did she say?" "She told me she loved us the same, that it didn't matter who our biological father was, that it wasn't about blood. And you believe that?" I was angry, furious. I screamed at her, called her a coward. She just sat there. Then I left. I didn't touch her, I swear." Ray's voice was quiet but firm. "What time did you leave?" "About 7:15. I drove home. My son can confirm. And you never mentioned this because I thought it would make me look guilty. And because what? Claire looked away. Because I wasn't the only one who knew. Ray's ears perked. What do you mean? Claire turned back, voice low. Thomas showed up while I was there. He came through the side door, saw me screaming at her. He told me to get out. So I did. Ray leaned back. You're saying Thomas was there before Margaret was killed? Claire nodded. And he was mad. Way worse than I was. He's always had a temper. He can't take betrayal. You saw what happened after his divorce. Ray stood. You're sure it was Thomas? Yes. As he walked back to his car, the rain picking up again, Ray's mind raced. Claire had lied. Yes. But now she'd thrown her brother directly into the center of the storm. Back at the station, Ray pulled up Thomas Holloway's alibi. He'd claimed he was working on a renovation job in Pendleton the night Margaret died. A quick call to the client listed on his invoice revealed the truth. We didn't see Tom that day, the client said over the phone. Said he was behind schedule and wouldn't be in until Friday. Ray hung up. Thomas had lied. He requested cell tower data for Thomas's phone. 20 minutes later, the ping location showed him near the Holloway house at 7:45 p.m., the night of the murder, less than 15 minutes after Claire claimed she left. Ray stared at the screen. The trap was closing. The next morning, he drove to Thomas's place. This time, Ray brought backup. Thomas answered the door in a worn t-shirt, eyes narrowed. Detective, something new. We need to talk. Now they sat at his kitchen table, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound between them. You told me you were in Pendleton, Ray said. You weren't. Thomas's jaw worked. What are you talking about? You lied. The client says you never showed up. Your phone pinged right near your mother's house. Thomas stood, fists clenched. I went there, okay. I talked to her too, just like Claire did. She told me the truth, if that's even what it is. And then, she didn't even apologize. Just said we were loved and that was enough. Was it? Thomas stared at the wall. I don't know, you killed her? No, he barked. I yelled, I cried, I punched the wall. But I didn't touch her. I left. Around 8. Ray pressed on. Who was there when you arrived? Claire was leaving. We didn't say much. Ray studied his eyes. Anyone else? A pause. There was a car out front when I left. I didn't recognize it. What kind of car? Dark sedan. Old. Washington plates. Ray stood, a knot forming in his stomach. Washington plates. Nora. She had said she arrived at 11 p.m. But what if she didn't? What if she came earlier? And what if Margaret had saved the most painful part of her confession for her youngest? As Ray drove back toward the station, he called the local gas station by the interstate and asked to review their security footage from the night of the murder. Less than an hour later, he had it. 9:06 p.m., a dark blue Honda Civic with Washington plates pulled into pump number 3. The timestamp was clear. Nora Holloway stepped out, looking tense, avoiding eye contact with the clerk inside. She had arrived 2 hours earlier than she claimed. Ray closed his eyes. Claire had lied. Thomas had lied. But both stories, for all their holes, stopped short of murder. Nora? She had no alibi at the time of death, and if she arrived early, she had time to speak to Margaret, to learn the truth of her own birth, and maybe to lose control. The next morning broke cold and colorless over Cedar Falls. Fog clung low to the streets like smoke from a fire long since put out. Detective Raymond Keene stood in the station's war room, walls lined with photographs, timelines, and names, all circling back to the quiet, devastating murder of Margaret Holloway. Now it seemed all roads led to Nora. He hit play on the gas station footage again. There was no denying the timestamp. 9:06 p.m., 2 hours earlier than Nora claimed she'd arrived. Her car, her plates, her face. She'd lied, and not just once. Ray needed more than footage. He needed motive. Something deeper than betrayal. Something that pushed someone from shock to rage. He picked up the hospice transcript again. Margaret's voice, frail and barely audible, confessed that none of the children were Harold's. She listed them by name. The children, Billy, Claire, Thomas, and little Nora. They're not yours. Ray paused the recording. 4 names. But there was something wrong. Why name each child separately? Why not just say the kids or our children? She emphasized little Nora. Why draw attention to her in particular? It felt deliberate. Ray pulled Margaret's journals from the evidence box, a collection of soft, leather-bound notebooks the children had handed over during the initial investigation. Most were full of church notes, recipes, occasional poetry. But one, dated spring 1995, was different. Inside, in slanted cursive, was a single entry underlined 3 times. I never should have taken her in, but it wasn't her fault. It was mine. Ray's pulse ticked upward. He flipped further. He threatened to take her from me, but Harold was never supposed to know. No one was. If the truth gets out, it'll ruin everything. Not just my marriage, my soul. He closed the journal slowly. There was a second secret. By noon, Ray stood in front of the Oregon Bureau of Vital Records in Salem. With his credentials, he gained access to Nora Holloway's birth certificate. The name Harold Holloway was listed as her father, but the section for mother's name was blank. Not Margaret. No name at all. He pulled related documents, hospital records from May 1985, when Nora was supposedly born. But the official birth certificate was processed 10 days after the hospital discharge. That was a red flag. After a long call and some internal pulling of strings, Ray was given access to the original file submitted to the hospital by the attending nurse on duty. The mother listed? Rachel Gibbons, age 17. Unmarried, no father listed. Discharged the next morning. Infant transferred under temporary guardianship. And the legal guardian named? Margaret Holloway. Ray leaned back in his chair. Nora wasn't just not Harold's daughter. She wasn't Margaret's either. Back in Cedar Falls, Ray sat across from Nora Holloway in a quiet interview room. The soft hum of the overhead light was the only noise between them. Her eyes were glassy, but not tearful. She looked tired, thin, like someone who had aged a year and a week. You told me you arrived in town at 11 p.m., Ray said. We now know that wasn't true. Nora didn't respond. You were seen at a gas station just past 9 o'clock. That gives you nearly an hour before your siblings arrived. You had time to see her. Nora blinked slowly. I believe you went to confront your mother. About the confession, maybe about something else. Ray slid the open journal across the table. She wasn't your mother, Nora. She raised you, but she didn't birth you. Silence. A long, painful silence. Then she spoke. Billy told me about the recording, she said softly. He played it for me, but I already knew. Ray didn't interrupt. She didn't tell me herself. I overheard her one night. I was 16. I was supposed to be asleep. She was on the phone with a woman I never met, talking about the girl, about me, saying she wished she could go back and change it. She wiped her eyes, still refusing to cry. I thought I misunderstood, but then I found a letter in her dresser drawer. From a Rachel G. dated a year after I was born. She called me her little mistake. Ray asked gently, You found this recently? Nora nodded. After Dad got sick, I started digging. Something in me needed the truth, and it hurt. God, it hurt. I thought at least I had one real parent, but no, I was never really part of them. Just some broken piece she patched into the picture. So you went to see her? Yes. I needed to hear it from her mouth. What did she say? She didn't deny it. She said she saved me, that my real mother didn't want me, that I should be grateful. Nora's voice tightened. She said she loved me the same, but I knew it was different. I knew it my whole life. Ray leaned forward. Did you kill her, Nora? A beat. No, she whispered. I wanted to scream. I did. I told her I hated her, that she ruined me, that I wished she'd left me where she found me. She looked up, her voice cracking now. But I didn't touch her. I left. She was alive when I left. I swear it. Ray studied her. She was either telling the truth or had finally learned how to lie perfectly. There was a knock at the door. Officer Lena Harlow stepped in. "Detective? You need to see this." Ray excused himself and stepped into the hall. Harlow handed him a new forensic report. "Remember the teacup found next to Margaret's body?" she asked. He nodded. "Poison. Low dose of oleandrin. Wouldn't have killed her on its own, but it would have slowed her reaction time, numbed pain, maybe even made her disoriented. We also found trace amounts on the rim of the pot." Ray raised an eyebrow. "Who touched the cup?" "Only Margaret's prints, but the pot had someone else's." Ray flipped the last page. The prints were a match. Billie Holloway. Rain hammered the windshield as Detective Raymond Keene stared across the parking lot of the Cedar Falls Marriott, where Billie Holloway had been staying since the funeral. The freshly printed forensic report rested on the passenger seat like a loaded weapon. Billie's fingerprints on the teapot. Poison in the tea. Margaret had been drugged before she was stabbed. The letter opener had drawn the final curtain, but the performance started hours before, with a well-planned, precise decision. Ray stepped out of his car and into the storm, trench coat snapping in the wind as he crossed to the hotel entrance. Inside, the lobby was quiet. A vase of lilies stood on the front desk, their petals drooping. Billie met him in room 314, dressed in a crisp gray sweater, dark jeans, and an expression of controlled exhaustion. "You said it was urgent," Billie muttered, stepping aside. "It is." Ray entered the room and sat at the writing desk. He didn't sugarcoat it. "We found oleandrin in your mother's teacup, a toxic compound, slows the heart, blurs the mind. Someone gave it to her before she was killed." Billie's eyebrows lifted in muted surprise. "Poison?" Ray nodded. "The teapot only had 2 sets of prints, your mother's and yours." A beat passed. Billie didn't move. "I need an explanation," Ray said. Billie closed the curtain slowly, then turned. His voice was tight. "I made her tea, the day before she died. It's not a crime to make your mother tea. You're a corporate lawyer, Billie. Don't pretend you don't understand how circumstantial evidence works." Billie crossed his arms. "So what?" Claire screams at her. Thomas punches holes in her walls, and Nora finds out she's not even part of the family tree. But I'm the one you think killed her? Ray said nothing, just waited. Finally, Billie sat down. "I didn't poison her," he said flatly, "but I did make the tea. I dropped by around 5. I brought dinner from the Willow Bistro. She wasn't eating. I made tea because it's what we always did when we needed to talk." "What did you talk about?" "She told me everything, about Dad, about how all 4 of us came from different men." Ray raised his eyebrows. "All 4? Billie nodded. "She didn't tell Dad just to confess. She told him because she knew he was about to die, and she couldn't carry it anymore. She said keeping that secret had eaten her alive." Ray leaned forward. "Did she tell you who your father was?" Billie hesitated. "She said he was a judge, someone married, someone who couldn't be seen with her. She didn't say his name, just that he paid her off to keep quiet and disappear. Told her she'd never get anything from him. She took the money and moved to Cedar Falls with Harold, who thought I was his." Ray's eyes narrowed. "And did that judge ever show up again?" Billie looked at him carefully. "He died in 2006. I only found out last year. She kept every receipt, every bank slip. There was a folder labeled William's Beginning. In it was a signed document from Judge Charles M. Levitt. He was my biological father." Ray recognized the name immediately. Levitt had sat on the Oregon Superior Court for over 25 years. Quiet retirement, no scandals ever attached. "Did your mother ever try to contact him?" "She claims she didn't, but I think she did. I think she was trying to get something from me. Maybe just closure. Maybe more." Ray folded his arms. "Billie, how much are you in debt?" Billie's face twitched. "I ran a check. Your firm's doing well, but you personally, you're upside down. Your credit is maxed, and you've got 2 mortgages. Your trust fund's dry." Billie didn't answer, just stared at the wall. Ray added, "Margaret had savings, substantial savings, close to $500,000 in liquid cash. But last month she started transferring large amounts. 2 payments of $75,000 each. One to a man in Phoenix, another to a woman in Eugene. Untraceable paper trails. What was she doing? Billy exhaled sharply, then gave up the fight. She was paying them off. Who? The other fathers. She was trying to, I don't know, keep the past clean. Or maybe she was scared we'd go digging if she died and left no answers. She was tying up her own guilt. Ray sat back. So you stood to inherit $500,000, but you knew she was burning through it, dollar by dollar. She wasn't thinking straight, Billy muttered. She wanted to confess everything and go broke while doing it. I tried to reason with her. I even begged her to stop. I told her to at least wait until the estate settled. Ray let that sit. Did you poison her, Billy? No, he said firmly. I made tea, but I didn't poison her. You're not denying the motive. Billy laughed bitterly. Motive? Sure, but so does everyone else. Claire's prints were on the murder weapon. Thomas lied about his alibi. And Nora, well, Nora has every reason in the world to hate her. Ray nodded. But you're the only one who would have known how to poison her. Billy narrowed his eyes. You had access to her prescriptions. You knew how to cover tracks. You've built a career on knowing how people get away with things. You made that tea, Billy, and maybe you didn't mean to kill her, but you wanted her confused, docile, maybe just scared, so she'd stop talking. Ray slid a photo across the table. It was Margaret's Bible, the one found at the scene. Between the pages, tucked in the Book of Revelation, was a check made out to W.L. Holloway, dated 3 days before her death. The amount? $200,000. Looks like she was going to give you what you asked for, Ray said. Billy stared at the check. She changed her mind, he whispered. She said I didn't deserve it. Ray said nothing. He didn't need to. She said forgiveness wasn't bought, Billy added. She said I'd inherited everything, except her mercy. Another long silence passed. Then Ray stood. You're not under arrest, Billy, but stay close. Back at the station, Ray pieced the threads together. Everyone had a motive. Everyone had lied. But only one had opportunity, skill, and silence. Until a forensic update came through at 9 p.m. The murder weapon, the letter opener, had traces of the same compound from the tea. Not just Margaret's blood, not just fingerprints. Oleandrin residue. Ray stared at the screen, realization dawning. The tea wasn't to confuse her. It was to weaken her so she couldn't fight back. And the killer had handled both. But Billy wasn't the only one with opportunity, because the tea wasn't made fresh. It had been reheated, and the microwave logs from Margaret's smart kitchen? Activated at 8:21 p.m. Billy was gone by then. Thomas had already left. Only one person was unaccounted for, and only one had time to prepare a fresh kill while the others argued over ashes and bloodlines. Nora. The night was windless and bone-cold as Detective Raymond Keene drove north on Interstate 5 toward Seattle. Traffic thinned after Olympia, the highway darkening, edged by silent pine. Nora Holloway lived in a narrow red brick duplex just off Rainier Avenue, a place that looked like it belonged to someone trying not to be found. Ray didn't call ahead. She wouldn't have answered. He parked outside her unit just after midnight. The light was on in the upstairs bedroom. A dog barked somewhere down the street. No movement inside. He knocked once, twice, no answer. He didn't knock a third time. Instead, he slid a warrant under the door. Then he stepped back and waited. 5 minutes later, the door opened. Nora stood there barefoot in an old sweatshirt, her face drawn and pale, framed by the backlight like a ghost waiting for judgment. Her hair was down, unbrushed. Her eyes were rimmed red. I figured you'd come, she said. Ray stepped in. They sat in the small kitchen, modest, clean, impersonal, the kind of place someone rents to survive, not to live. On the table was a mug of tea, chamomile, untouched. I'm going to lay it all out, Ray said, voice low. We have the microwave logs from the house. The tea wasn't hot when Billy brought it. Someone reheated it at 8:21 p.m. The smart log proves that. Nora stared at the table. You told me you arrived in Cedar Falls after 11, but security footage shows you at the gas station before 9. You were at the house. You had time to talk to her, and the autopsy says Margaret was stabbed at approximately 8:40 p.m. He leaned forward. We also found trace oleandrin, the same toxin in her tea, on the murder weapon. You didn't just want her dead. You wanted her too weak to stop you. Silence. You poisoned her. Then you stabbed her. After hearing her confession, after hearing that she wasn't your mother, that she took you in and lied for 39 years. Ray's voice softened. But this wasn't about the lie. Not entirely. It was about what you found in that envelope under her bed. The letter she kept from Rachel Givens. Nora's eyes twitched. Her mouth opened, then closed again. I read the letter, Ray said. It was full of regret. Rachel gave birth to you in a charity ward, gave you away 2 hours later. Margaret stepped in, covered her shame, and raised you as her own. He pulled the letter from his coat pocket and laid it between them. Nora stared at it like it might burst into flame. I used to think she saved me, she said finally. When I was little, she tucked me in, brushed my hair, sang to me in the hallway. But something always felt off. I was different from the others, quieter, hungrier for her affection. Ray let her speak. She never told me, not once. Not when I asked why my birth certificate was late. Not when I found the letter. Not even when Dad died. She just acted like love could rewrite blood. Ray waited, then asked, "Did you kill her?" Nora looked up slowly. I made the tea. I took it from the fridge. I knew what oleander looked like. I'd seen it in the backyard growing up. She always said it was dangerous. I remembered that. Her voice cracked. She was drinking it when I told her I knew. That Rachel had wanted nothing to do with me. That I was the daughter of a stranger, raised in a house built on a lie. Ray stared, steady. She didn't even cry, Nora whispered. She just said she was sorry, but that she didn't regret it, that she loved me more than Rachel ever could. Nora turned away. I saw the letter opener on the shelf, the old one with the wooden handle. It had dust on it. It didn't belong in her hand. It belonged in her desk. Ray's voice came low. Why did you do it, Nora? Because it wasn't just a lie, she whispered. It was a theft. She stole my identity, my truth, my history. She let me believe I was something I wasn't for nearly 40 years. Her shoulders shook. She made me a Holloway, then told me I never was. Ray didn't speak, didn't move. Then softly she added, but I didn't plan to kill her. I just wanted to hurt her, to make her feel something real. I poured the tea, waited until she finished. When I saw her hands tremble, I thought, maybe now she'd understand what I felt. And the stabbing? She told me to forgive her. And I said, forgiveness is for mothers. You were never mine. Nora looked up, tears tracking down her face. She didn't fight, not once. She just looked at me, like she knew. Ray stood, heart heavy. You'll need to come with me, Nora. She nodded. No resistance. Later, as Ray drove her back to Cedar Falls, the town slowly awakening ahead in the distance, he reflected on what Margaret had written in her journal. I did what I had to do. Not for me, for the children. Even if it ruins everything when they find out. She knew the truth would break them. She just didn't know one of them would break her back. The courtroom was silent as Nora Holloway stood to receive her sentence. The judge's voice was steady, measured, a tone perfected over decades. It echoed against the wood-paneled walls of the Cedar County Courthouse, and yet the words felt distant, almost irrelevant. For the charge of second-degree murder, with mitigating circumstances of mental and emotional duress, the court sentences you to 18 years in the Oregon State Correctional Facility, with the possibility of parole after 12. Nora nodded once. No tears, no collapse. Just the same quiet stillness she had worn since her arrest 3 months earlier. In the gallery, Billy, Claire, and Thomas sat in 3 separate rows, each deliberately apart. What had once been a family, at least by name, was now shattered glass. Nothing whole remained. Detective Raymond Keene sat in the back, his badge heavy in his coat pocket, a worn manila folder in his lap. The trial had been straightforward once the confession came in. Nora pled guilty. The toxicology reports confirmed the oleandrin dosage. The microwave log pinned her to the house. Even the stab angle matched her height and dominant hand. No theatrics, no last-minute twists. But Ray couldn't shake the feeling that something was unfinished. Some itch still buried beneath layers of grief, guilt, and decades of secrecy. It started with one question. Why keep the letter from Rachel if Margaret knew Nora might find it? It had been locked in a drawer for years and then, weeks before her death, moved under her bed, where anyone could find it. That wasn't forgetfulness. It was intention. 2 weeks after the sentencing, Ray visited the Holloway home one last time. The estate sale was over. The furniture was gone. The carpets cleaned. But the air still held the weight of old sorrow. The hospice bed was gone too. All that remained in the master bedroom was Margaret's dresser and a cracked photo frame of Harold holding baby Nora on the porch, 25 years earlier. Ray opened the bottom drawer. Empty. Then, almost as an afterthought, he reached behind it, running his hand along the backboard. His fingers struck something, a thin envelope taped to the inside wall. He tugged gently, peeling the yellowing adhesive from the wood. On the front, in faded ink, was written, "For the one who asks why." He opened it carefully. Inside, a single sheet of handwritten paper, folded 3 times. It read, "To the one who finds this, if you're reading this, I've either failed to explain or was too afraid to. Maybe both. But there's something I need to say, not just as a mother, but as a woman who's made too many mistakes to count. Nora is not my daughter by blood. That's true, but she is the only child I chose. Billy was conceived in loneliness, Claire in fear, Thomas in revenge. Each came into the world wrapped in pain I couldn't escape. I did my best. I tried to love them equally, but I was drowning in secrets even they didn't deserve to carry. But Nora? Nora was left at a hospital by a girl who couldn't look at her. A nurse called me, knew my history, knew I wanted more children, said there was a baby nobody would claim. I said yes before I saw her. She looked like nothing I expected, and yet everything I needed. She was mine from the second I held her. I lied to protect her, not from the world, from herself, from the question of why no one wanted her. I thought I could love her hard enough to make her believe. But I failed her. I failed them all. I won't ask for forgiveness, but I pray they all find their way. Margaret Ray sat on the floor of the empty room, the letter trembling in his hand. It wasn't just a confession. It was a kind of will, a last truth, buried beneath all the lies. Margaret had taken in a child no one wanted and tried to love her into wholeness. And when that child found out the truth, raw and unprotected, it hadn't freed her. It had destroyed her. Ray stood at the edge of Millstone Cemetery the following Sunday, watching Claire lay a single white rose on her mother's grave. The rest of the family wasn't there. They hadn't spoken since the trial. He approached quietly. "She asked me to come alone," Claire said without turning. "Said the others weren't ready." Ray nodded. Found something in the dresser. He handed her the letter, folded neatly. Claire read it, slowly, tears brimming, but never falling. "She really did love her," Claire whispered, "even if she didn't know how." Ray looked out over the rows of stones. "I think she loved all of you, just in different ways. Not always the right ones." Claire tucked the letter into her coat. "Is it wrong that I still feel angry?" "No," Ray said, "but maybe it's a start that you feel anything at all." They stood in silence as the wind stirred the trees and the sky held still. The Holloways would never be whole again, but maybe in time they could learn to live with what remained. 1 year later, a letter arrived at the Cedar Falls Police Department addressed to Detective Raymond Keene. No return address, just a postmark from Salem. Inside was a photo. Nora Holloway in a beige prison uniform, standing in the library of the Oregon State Correctional Facility, holding a copy of Little Women and smiling faintly. On the back she had written, "I'm not okay, but I'm still here, and for now, that has to be enough." Ray folded the photo and slid it into the back of his notebook. Some cases close with a bang, others close with a whisper. But the Holloway case? It closed with a truth so heavy it shattered everything it touched. and a love too imperfect to save them all.